Welcome, everybody. My name is Sherry Stoka, and I'm owner and founder of Weight Loss MD. I am very excited today to present to you or introduce to you our new weight loss training workshop. And really the intent of this and this introductory session is to really help you understand the complexities of weight loss and also understand the regulatory systems that really drive certain behaviors. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. But again, if you are someone out there that is in the business to help people improve their health, you know weight loss has to be a component to that. So I hope you find this to be really life-changing for you and your patients. So I'm just going to start with some statistics. Why are we all here? I mean, why am I here? Statistically, the health of our nation is deteriorating, and it's deteriorating very quickly. 1 billion people globally are expected to be living with obesity by 2030. Over 128 million Americans have prediabetes or diabetes. There was a new recent research by the UNC School of Global Public Health that showed that 88% of Americans have some type of metabolic dysfunction. It is estimated that 80% of people with prediabetes do not know it. Autoimmunity on the rise, once a scarce condition is now a common ailment. 90% of healthcare costs are tied to chronic conditions, otherwise known as lifestyle diseases. So this is just a snapshot of the obesity maps, and most people are familiar or have seen these, but I think it's important to just note how it has changed over the last 10 years. So this is 2011. When you see the states highlighted in orange, those are states that have 30 to 35% of the population as obese. So you look at 2013, you have more of these states that are becoming more obese. And then now we are getting into another category, which is 35 to 40% of the population being obese. So then you fast forward, you go to 2017, you can see more states now are in that category of 35 to 40% of the population being obese. And then now, 2020, you can see that again, the trends are dire. This is scary. I mean, you can see again, what's important in 2011, there were a number of green states, healthier states, and now 2020. So much of that has even changed now because we're going into 2023. And you can see that it's drastically trending in the wrong direction. So that's why we're here. That's why we're here to help and make a difference in this world. So I did want to talk a little bit about autoimmunity because we can't ignore it. There's a global autoimmune market has grown from 4.59 to 4.55 to 4.59 billion, which is about 8.6% growth. So the market is expected to reach 6.89 billion in 2026. There are over 100 different autoimmune conditions. And essentially, I am going to tie this all back of why I'm bringing and mentioning this, but autoimmunity is basically a body that's not healthy. Okay, so a dysregulated immune system involves 4 basic ingredients. So genetic-wise, you might be more predisposed to get, autoimmune disease for sure. Environmental triggers, so mold, toxins, our diets, loss of our gut barrier function or an imbalance or what we call dysbiosis. And I mentioned our diet, but this processed chemicals, preservatives, additives are just wreaking havoc on our health. So to continue with some of the statistics, this is scary. I mean, it's important to understand that without interventions, the societal and economic effect is going to be substantial worldwide. Global economic costs related to obesity, overweight, and obesity are estimated to rise from 2 trillion back in 2020 to 3 trillion by 2030 and 18 trillion by 2060. And I know that seems like it is a far ways, but we have to start making changes today because we don't even know what the future is going to hold if we can't get a grasp on the health of our people, essentially. So the way that I look at it is we can't wait for local, national, or international initiatives to drive change. This is now on us to help. And not only that, and I talk about this a lot, but we must not only be able to help our patients, help the people that we know, but we have to do the right thing and set good examples. So how many of you out there that see patients have had a patient like this? 45-year-old female, she weighs 180 pounds, gains, reports that she gains 5 to 10 pounds a year. She exercises most days. She has a stressful job, so works 50 hours per week. She experiences regular headaches, joint pain, irregular bowel movements, indigestion, reflux, hot flashes, etc. She gets 6 to 7 hours of sleep per night and comes to you saying that nothing works anymore. She tries everything, and the more she tries, the more she gains. So what do you do in this situation? So let me talk a little bit about my education and how I changed the way I look at things now. But my education as a registered dietitian nutritionist really was learning about the science of food. I learned so much about food and calculating, certain nutrients and macros for very specific disease states. So dietitians are very, very clinical. They're very good at that. I master the macros, how to adjust when needed, not too much fat. Back in the day, that's what we were taught. They are more calorically dense. You got to watch the fat. You got to, eat more carbohydrates because there's less calories per gram. So, these are things that we learned in school. I was taught to put people on low calorie meal plans, teach them portion control, and really control the carbohydrates throughout the day. I was taught that calories matter. If people would just stick to a caloric plan, everything would be fine, right? Well, over the years and when I started the business, I knew that I couldn't follow that model. I knew that I had to offer something different because putting people on meal plans was just not going to be the answer. And so that's when I really started to delve into the science of the body. How does the body actually work? We know how the food works and what the food contains, but how is the body adjusting and adapting to certain nutrients? So back in the day, I would look at someone who needed to lose weight and I would, estimate their calorie needs and I'd put them on a meal plan. But now I look at patients entirely in a different way. So one of the very first things I'm looking at, their gut health. And this can very much be a simple process, looking at certain symptoms. I look at their body composition, visceral fat, so this inflammatory fat that I talk about all the time. And that is a key piece to this. I dig into their regular diet because most people that come in, they're like, I eat well. And then, really, what does that mean? If they're not sleeping and they have a significant amount of stress, it has to be addressed. And more importantly, just looking into other foundational issues, if necessary. Are the hormones all over the place? Do they have food sensitivities? If they have food sensitivities, they have constant inflammation in their body, the immune system is overactive. And then there's the environmental toxicities that we're exposed to all the time. So you have to look at patients differently and not think about calories all the time. Because a calorie is not a calorie. If you can imagine, and I have had so many people, and not recently, but back in the day, it did not matter what you had. If you had 1,000 calories of this and 1,000 calories of that, it did not matter. I mean, that to me is, negligence is an understatement. But anyway, so you can see if someone has a 600 calorie meal of what you see to your left versus what you see to the right is a completely different story. And so as you can imagine, when you're continuously eating in that way, your body is going to take a hit pretty significantly. So we talk a lot about glycemic variability. And glycemic variability is really the beginning of metabolic dysfunction. So just in quick summary, most people have no idea what their blood sugars are doing throughout the day. No idea. You know, they do later when disease starts to progress, and now they're told they have prediabetes and then eventually diabetes. But think about this. If you're a person that's eating more like the lean proteins, the vegetables, you're going to have minimal variability of blood sugar spikes throughout the day. If you are someone who's eating high sugar, high processed, you know, high inflammatory type of toxic fats, you're going to have these variabilities all day long. And again, most people have no idea. They have no idea that this is going on. So this is a big piece to really understanding our metabolic health. So the food is where it all begins, right? So as I stated before, repeated eating of the standard American diet causes glycemic variability. So over time, this glycemic variability starts the inflammatory process. So whenever you have inflammation in the body, the immune system is involved because that is just the way the body's designed. When you get injured, inflammation, it's a normal part of our physiology when there's damage to an area or injury, that the immune system comes along and helps, you know, to heal it. But what is happening now is we have inflammation all the time. So now the immune system is overactive. And this is where now we're getting into tying it back together with autoimmunity. So inflammation is in the body. Now you're starting to see insulin resistance because the standard American diet is constantly full of processed foods, sugars, carbohydrates, and now the sugar that we are consuming is literally just staying in the blood and not getting into the cells to be used for energy. So most people that are familiar with diabetes, but this is not even about diabetes, this is about the majority of people walking around, that they don't realize this because we're not monitoring it. So when sugar remains in the blood for too long because it can't get into the cells, whether it's insulin resistance or there's the body's just, the insulin is pooped out because it's overworked, then your body's going to find a way to get that sugar out. And what it will do is it will literally start depositing it into your fat cells. Now the body has metabolically changed, because I'm going to talk about why these fat cells that the sugar is going into are very different from other fat cells. So this is when, again, you cannot even fathom, you know, talking about just calorically restricting and helping people lose weight, because at this point, it just is not going to happen. So just to help you understand, again, what happens in the body when there is metabolic dysfunction. So again, glucose cannot enter the cells for energy. So it stays there. So then the glucose, obviously, or the sugar, is dumped directly into the fat cells. Because this sugar is toxic and has, you know, inflammatory components, it's, you know, deposited into the fat. These fat cells also become inflammatory. So now you have this inflammatory fat cells. And actually, when the body has this excess fat, it actually can start manufacturing its own inflammatory fat from the glucose that's just sitting in the blood. So there have been many situations where we have patients that we do put on really low fat diets because we're very strategic. And until we started to actually manipulate the process, they would see, you know, fat that was actually, they would have an increase in fat when they weren't even eating fat. So you have to understand how to access the right fat stores in order for the body to lose weight. So again, too much fat in these fat cells in the areas of the body that really cannot be recognized anymore. They also start to deposit in the liver, the muscle. So again, you know, this chronic, you know, vicious cycle of metabolic damage. All the while, the body is literally starving for nutrients because the sugar can't get into the cells, and the patient continues to gain weight. and becomes more inflamed with this inflammatory fat. Obesity is multifactorial. Yes, I think we've all heard this a million times. So there are other components other than our food. There is a strong social and financial pressure to consume poor diets. It's everywhere. There's so much manipulation. There's so much marketing where people don't know. They are confused. There's widespread incentives to be sedentary. That's what we do now. We're on our phones, we're on our computers. Everything is tied to that. There's increasing evidence and concern, obviously, for chemicals and sugar in our food. So it's starting to be recognized, thank God, and that it's altering our metabolism and literally damaging our health. There is a lack of healthcare services that support weight loss and healthy living. We live in a sick care environment. There is no insurance reimbursement or support for preventative health. We like to act like there is, but there's not. And nobody's talking about the root issues. Everybody is talking about how do we suppress the symptoms while the body remains in the sick state. And it's as simple as that. Genetics do play a role, but that's another whole component that we're going to get deeper into in our workshop and help you understand why genetics are not everything. And, again, once you're in this state of metabolic dysfunction, so many other bodily functions and systems are affected. So your gut health deteriorates, your hormones become imbalanced, you have nutrient deficiencies, you have so many food sensitivities. So these, again, is everything that we're going to dig into and really help you understand. And if I haven't said it already, all fat is not the same. So we really dig deeper into our strategic weight loss and help you understand that. So this is just a image that will help you understand that there are actually different fat stores. So you have brown fat, you have beige fat, and you have. So the inflammatory fat, or the fat that is the most difficult to burn, is considered white fat. So these are the fat storing cells. So they literally have minimal, ability to burn energy, unlike the brown fat. Look at all of these little mitochondria that is within the cell of brown fat. And these actually produce thermogenesis, and it can actually get your body to burn more fat. The white cells are what stores fat. So this is the fat that you need to go after when you're losing weight. It is not this fat. So hence the strategic weight loss. Let me help explain this in a more practical way. So when you think about, certain fat stores, you have some fat stores that are the brown fat. They can be easily accessed for energy. And then you have the white cells, right? That I said the body does not recognize. And it's almost the same as if you think about a refrigerator and a freezer. The white cells are the freezer, like they are tucked away. The body's not going to use it. It's inflammatory. It's dangerous to the body. There's toxins that are stored in there. So the body does this to protect itself. So what you need to do is you need to transport the white cells into a place where the body actually can start to recognize it and burn it. So just like a freezer and a refrigerator, you can have all the food in the world in your freezer, but if you don't move it to the refrigerator, you will never, ever be able to use it for calories. So getting to the end here, crucial components, again, to understand. The metabolic state of an overweight or obese person is very different from a person who has a healthy body weight. There are different fat stores, and they are accessed and used very differently. You must understand that calories in versus calories out is only 4 math equations. The body is a little more sophisticated in that. So don't get in the habit of asking your patients how many calories they burned in their exercise and how many they ate. None of that matters. It just does not matter. Blood sugar dysregulation and gut health are the roots of obesity, and obesity is a symptom. Obesity does not cause anything. It is a symptom of a sick, metabolically dysfunctioned body that now has resulted in this obese state. So another very important concept to understand. Times have changed. Our genetics have not. So you can imagine that our genetics really were meant to survive back in the day when we used to be hunters and gatherers, and now we live in a much different world. So we have to treat people that way. So strategic weight loss that we basically developed, and we use every single day, does four main things. It targets the inflammatory fat. We eliminate inflammation and calm the immune system in the body. We normalize blood sugars and improve insulin sensitivity. And we provide for quick weight loss. It is quick weight loss, but it's quick fat loss. So, as I stated at the beginning, we have developed a 3-part series weight loss workshop. And I'm just going to kind of give you some idea of what the content will look like. So like I said, 3-part series. The first part is going to be the complexity and physiology of weight loss, and that will be on October 21st. Part 2 is going to be implementing strategic weight loss, and that's on December 2nd. And our Part 3 series is going to be on January 20th, and that's going to be case studies and resources that are necessary for success. So just to dig deeper into what you will learn in these different series is, again, the first part is understanding the physiology of weight loss. So we'll dig into, again, more detail about why weight loss is multifactorial, metabolic dysfunction and insulin resistance, other factors that affect weight loss, breaking down the macros. We talk a little bit about cholesterol and try to debunk a lot of those myths that are out there. Talk about exercise, the benefits and the pearls, and supplements. What ones are essential? We definitely dig deeper into supplements later, but we like to introduce just some of the essential nutrients. In part 1, we're also talking about gut health. So what it is and why it matters, common conditions that are due to gut issues, what strains are correlated with weight gain or weight loss, the role of probiotics and prebiotics, and how to rebalance the gut for optimal health. In part 1, we also are talking about genetics and epigenetics. We're going to explain that, and we're going to talk about how our gut influences our genes, what is in our control and what is not, and then we're going to dig deeper into genetic SNPs and their role in weight loss. And wrapping up part 1 is lifestyle and behaviors that need to be addressed. So movement, mental wellness, relationships, environment, toxic burden, stress, and sleep. And just a sneak peek at part 2 and 3, we're digging into our strategic weight loss. We are going to talk in more detail about weight loss supplements and medications that cause weight gain. So many of them, and we're really not acknowledging this. We're going to talk about the best and worst diets for weight loss, debunking myths about weight loss. We will be discussing case studies, digging deeper into root issues. We are going to talk about our ready-to-go programs, patient education resources, and we will dig a little deeper into some specialty testing if that is something that you want to learn more about, because at the end of the day, we are working with sicker patients now, and oftentimes you do just need to dig a little bit deeper.